Oh, yeah, woo! Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah. Wait. Oh, it's on fire. It's on fire. Not again. All right, guys, get out your trash bags. Hopefully these pieces aren't that big this time. Hopefully they don't get stuck in the damn mud. This is just gonna be such... Wait. Is the fire out? Is the fire out? Oh my God, I think it's out. We did it, guys. Holy God. Woo! Yeah. So what do we do with it now? Well, I guess you guys need to go get it. We're not gonna go get it. You go get it. That's a 15-story tall stainless steel structure that was just on fire, and now it's on stilts. Stilts! Are you kidding me? Well, I'm not gonna go get it. Let's get Zeus! Yeah! Hey, Zeus man, have I got a deal for you? I know. You want me to risk my life and my brain the size of a planet just so that you can continue your silly little science project. Yeah. Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and they want me to go retrieve a rocket. You know, I do wish that you would just tell me instead of trying to engage my enthusiasm, because I haven't got one. Zeus? What I'm trying to say is, I'm quite used to being humiliated. I could even stick my head in a bucket of water if you like. If that's what you really want. Would you like me to stick my head in a bucket of water? You do know that unsecured the way that it is, and on those wretched landing legs, a good gust of wind is going to blow that thing over and turn me into 100,000-pound rice pudding. But I suppose you really don't care? Life. Don't talk to me about life. Nobody even mentioned it. Zeus, we'll get back to you. So, hey guys, I just talked to Zeus, and guess what? We're gonna have to go get it. Son of a... Good morning, and welcome to a special episode of the Angry Astronaut. I find myself saying that all the damn time, but in this case, it's very, very true. SN15 was truly special. What an amazing accomplishment. And I hope everybody at SpaceX, at least those who watched my stuff, appreciated my humor. Obviously, none of that was serious. But in any event, I hope it's something that you guys enjoyed. I can get kind of goofy sometimes, but it doesn't take anything away from the accomplishment. And the reason I'm calling this a 99.9% success is because even though SpaceX, by their current standards in their testing, may regard this as a complete success, and I can understand that, there was one major issue, of course, that all of us saw was the fire. And in the course of this video, I'm going to be quoting directly from Elon Musk about rapid reusability. And rapid reusability cannot be accomplished if you have a massive blaze underneath a rocket for a sustained period of time. Even small blazes on trucks, cars, etc., can cause an enormous amount of damage. Given that the engines are clustered close together, I can't imagine that all three of them didn't suffer some kind of damage in the course of that fire, but it is a minor thing. I'll be talking, of course, more about it as the video progresses, and what this means in terms of next steps and that sort of thing. But a lot of important stuff was accomplished. The heat tiles finally will be recovered. Seems they did very well, to first observation, but they're going to have to be examined in great detail to see if there are any cracks, if they came loose from, their fittings, from their mounts, that sort of thing. Then that's just one of 1,000 things that SpaceX is going to be able to do now that they're able to recover the Starship. Of course, as I'm recording this, Starship has not yet been recovered. There is no crane as I'm recording this recovering Starship, and I think that they may be, going through the process of how to do this safely, because it is dangerous. I mean, as Zeus said in my little comedy act there, it is a 15-story tall stainless steel structure that was on fire and is sitting on stilts. And a really strong gust of wind from the ocean could blow it over. It's not secured as well as it is, or rather was, on the pad before it launched. It's not the same situation. And Falcon 9s have fallen over, and this could happen with the Starship as well. It is a dangerous operation to recover this thing. It is risky. And so they are going to go through this process very methodically, and hopefully Starship does not fall over in the process. I'm feeling very optimistic. Just watching it made me really optimistic. And may I say, thank you so much to everybody who supported my trip here. I'm currently in Houston, going to be doing a lot of stuff here as well, but thank you so much, guys, for bringing me here. My flight leaves late today. I'm going to still try to accomplish as much as I can while I'm here, but this was truly amazing, and it would not have happened without all of you. So once again, thank you so much. So let's get started. SN15 right now. So this is how things looked from the beach, from my vantage point, using proper equipment as opposed to the garbage U2 app that I was using at the time. And as you can see, Starship takes off from the pad and vanishes into the clouds very swiftly. And yet, I did not give a damn. The sound and the spectacle of seeing this thing take off in person is just worth it. And actually not seeing it, but rather hearing it rumble almost directly overhead as it followed its flight path was truly amazing. And if you want to get a rough idea of what it really sounded like, multiply that by, about 20, I guess, and that's what it sounded like overhead. It was intimidating and exciting and just unlike anything that I've experienced for a very long time. And as you can see, Starship performed extremely well. The upgraded Raptors did flawlessly, at least in the initial ascent, and shut down in the proper sequence. The orange color is sometimes looked upon as being a little fuel-rich as the burning was taking place, maybe less than ideal, but then again, humidity might have been causing that color as well, so it's very difficult to tell. And as you can see, the image was frozen from SpaceX for some time during the ascent, something that would have been a lot more problematic if the vessel had not safely landed. If there had been another RUD, then we would have lost a lot of visual information, again, by having the vessel out in the clouds. I'm not certain as to why they don't put a drone above cloud cover in order to capture the image of the Starship flying up through the clouds. They've done that for Falcon 9s, but they don't seem to do it with Starship, or if they do, they keep that footage to themselves. But the heat tiles, as you can see, appear to have been staying on well, but of course we get to see that after the landing. That is what is so important about this, as we all know, is Starship successfully landed. And that, of course, was a fantastic thing to see. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Now, also, as usual, Starship maintained incredible aerial accuracy and control during the flight. It's not like this thing just flies straight up, shifts a few meters, and then comes back down. It flies almost completely over South Padre Island before it returns to the pad, at least according to people that I spoke to there who have seen it fly before. It's quite a phenomenon, and I get a little worried, actually, about what would happen if this thing were to explode 10 kilometers up in the atmosphere and stainless steel debris were to fall down on everybody. I can't see that not happening, but fortunately, Starship seems to have flight down pat. SpaceX seems to have that aspect completely under control. And here goes the final engine. And once there was that cutout, the effect on the surface was completely eerie. Everything was dead silent, especially the animals. Gulls were making no noise. Nothing was making any noise except the people around us. And that was creepy, let me tell you. I'd also ask you to notice just how closely the Raptors are clustered together even when they're gimbaling. That's actually an important thing to note when we discuss the fire later on. But as you can see, the belly flop seems to have gone perfectly well, and the descent was completely under control. And these contrails that eventually start forming around Starship and its flaps and fins get to be super impressive in this kind of atmosphere. It was quite a thing to just hear the silence and the anticipation of knowing this thing is coming back down. It is also interesting to note that the telemetry officer was not calling out altitudes as Starship descended as he did with SN11, so it was more difficult to calculate the rate of descent. Impossible for me, actually, as opposed to what I was able to do in my analysis of SN11. And I'm curious as to why that was done, but nevertheless, it did successfully land, so the rate of descent was something that they could control and deal with. But one thing is certain. Once Starship came out of its belly flop and started lighting its engines, it only started with 2 and not 3 as was expected at the beginning. Did one of the engines fail? That's hard to tell, but something else that is certain is those 2 engines kept going almost full steam through the entire landing process. As you can see, neither engine appeared to shut down until Starship was safely on the ground, indicating that they had to make up for some rate of descent, or they just needed extra power to decelerate Starship sufficiently. And of course, everybody was celebrating, but SpaceX focused in on that fire very quickly and identified it. They were pretty much aware, in my opinion, that Starship was on fire before it even set down. Now, this was described as a small fire, but you gotta remember, this thing is 50 meters tall, so any fire that's even visible on this vessel is actually quite large, several times taller than a fully grown human being. So it actually was a substantial fire coming out from underneath the skirt. And remember when I said that the engines were closely clustered together? I cannot imagine that all 3 engines engines did not suffer at least some damage as a result of this fire, at least in terms of their insulation, connections, that sort of thing. It might be possible to still reuse these engines. Elon Musk has recently tweeted that they are going to try to launch SN15 again, which has me beyond excited. He's focused on reusability, and I'm so happy that he's not lost sight of that. SN15 must at least try to be reused. They have to try to launch this thing again, but they may have to replace the engines given how long this fire kept going. It was several minutes, and yeah, it may look small, but again, think of the size of the rocket and then take that into account, and this actually was a substantial and serious blaze caused by yet another methane leak. Now, something that came out a little bit wrong was when SpaceX said that we expect there to be a fire with the fuel that we're using, with methane and methane leaks and that sort of thing. That sounded a little odd to me. We expect this rocket to be on fire when it lands, and we expect to have to use a fire suppression system on it. If that indeed is the case, then they also realize that they have a serious problem that needs to be rectified. Obviously, you can't have your rocket on fire for a substantial amount of time after it lands, and this is why I call this test a 99.9% success. They've really got to get those methane leaks under control if they want this vessel to be totally reusable and swiftly reusable, because here we are 24 hours later and they still haven't put a crane on it. So it has some issues, obviously, but that is to be expected. We still have a long ways to go in this process, and to be perfectly clear, a huge step forward was taken, fire or no fire. So let's check out the damage. The burnt insulation that you see here that was spotted by Starship Gazer, and man, his photos are amazing. Follow him on Twitter, as you just saw. Really indicate that there probably was some damage to the Raptors up underneath the skirt. Some of the more sensitive connections, the sorts of things that required insulation, seem to have taken damage from the fire, and that's not surprising given the size of it. Also, the landing legs buckled slightly. You see the metal seems to be uneven and a little wavy, but nevertheless, that also is to be expected because these landing legs, contrary to popular belief, were only a bit beefed up versions of SN10. These are not new landing legs. These are interim landing legs that will probably not be used on SN16. And as far as the heat tiles are concerned, this is the only one that I've been able to spot that actually came loose. Although, as you can see, the rest of them may look a little unsteady, as if they may have shaken a bit loose. It's kind of hard to tell, once again, just from my own untrained analysis, but the fact that one tile came completely loose indicates that, far more could happen during a full-scale launch all the way through the atmosphere and a re-entry. Now, the prevailing theory is that the rest of the heat tiles are actually mounted differently, the other patches of heat tiles on the ship, and so it may be a comparison that's being made here to determine which system is the most viable. Regardless, now that we have recovered, at least hopefully, an intact Starship, these are things that SpaceX can now learn and analyze. But as I'm recording this crane has not yet been attached to Starship. Starship remains in sort of a semi-vulnerable state if an extremely strong wind comes in from the ocean. But at the same time, I understand the caution. Bringing a large piece of equipment close to Starship at this point might be a bit risky. And who knows, maybe the work they need to do can actually just be done on the pad, but I sort of doubt it. I think they're going to put this thing on the transporter, take it back to the facility to be worked on, and try to relaunch it. And I'm delighted that Elon wants to do this at such an early stage, because rapid reusability is absolutely critical. And of course, what was also critical was that Starship stick this landing on this particular launch. It was more important than any launch before it because so many eyes were on this test, especially the eyes of NASA and the Government Accounting Office, or the GAO. And Elon Musk does value the NASA support. He said, quote, "It's definitely going to be really helpful. It's mostly been funded internally thus far, and it's pretty expensive. It's a tough vehicle to build because we're trying to crack the nut of a fully and rapidly reusable rocket." Unquote. And there's still a lot of boxes to check off. The heat shield, and it needs to be analyzed and perhaps improved. The landing legs, the methane leak, and then the Super Heavy, which hasn't been tested yet and has not 3 engines but 28. Orbital refueling. So many things that needs to be done before this thing becomes practical and viable, especially if it's going to reach Mars or the moon. Quote, "The Starship design can work, it's just a hard thing to solve, and the support of NASA is very much appreciated in this regard. I think it's going to work," unquote. And I don't know about you, but I think SN15 did a lot to convince NASA and the GAO that this is the ship to go with. Now, does this mean I've changed my mind about the Dynetics lander? No, I have not. In a perfect world, I would love it if Congress would give an emergency appropriation to NASA in order to fund 2 competing projects. And this is way better than the Blue Origin lander. I don't care what anybody has to say. It would be much better for Artemis if we had 2 landers competing instead of 1. And regardless of what's been accomplished with Starship, the Dynetics Alpaca can be delivered to the moon with rockets that either exist or will exist by the end of this year, whereas Starship cannot reach the moon until the entire system is working. That is much, much more daunting than putting this little lander to the moon with existing rockets. So I actually believe that it would be a good idea to have 2 solutions. Unfortunately, NASA can't afford them, as I said in my previous video about this topic. So when it comes right down to it, if Starship is what Artemis has to go with, then what happened with SN15 was a fantastic event in the history of human spaceflight. So, as I am recording this, a crane is approaching SN15. So, the moment of truth is going to be happening here very soon, at least considering the time that I'm recording this. As you can probably see, I record my live shots before I do my dub overs. So, it's quite possible in the course of the video that I said something that's, happened after I'm shooting this at this particular moment. And Starship has been successfully recovered or not. We'll see. I have to say I'm on pins and needles because recovering this thing intact is absolutely crucial to the future progress of Starship. If it falls over, granted, it's still a big accomplishment, but they are going to lose a lot of important information on the ship. A lot of analysis that could be done on the ship will be lost if their recovery effort fails. Plus, it's going to be dangerous. I mean, there's no question about that. But at the same time, I have a great degree of confidence in SpaceX and in the people that work there, in their professionalism, in their skills. And I think they're going to be successful. And I think that they are going to have a lot of information to gain from SN15 to make the maximum possible progress. Now, a lot of you folks may be thinking that I'm just a nitpicker when it comes to these tests. Well, yeah, I am, because what Elon Musk is trying to accomplish is enormous. It is a huge challenge beyond belief, and he needs to progress very quickly if he's going to accomplish this in the time or anywhere near the time that he wants to. And I like to compare Elon, frankly, to one of my favorite historical personalities, and that is Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes accomplished amazing things. He was a business and aviation genius. He was astonishing, so talented in so many ways. And yet, his biggest project, the Hercules, or better known as the Spruce Goose, dragged him down. It dragged him down from eccentricity to complete insanity. Now, obviously, he had lots of other problems besides just the Spruce Goose, but it certainly didn't help. And even though the thing did fly, it was never practical. Now, I hope that Starship is not Elon's Spruce Goose. There's just so many similarities between Elon and Hughes. And I mean that as a compliment. Howard Hughes is one of the greatest geniuses in aviation history. He's just an astonishing man, and I have the greatest respect for him in his past. But at the same time, his history ended in tragedy, and I don't want that to happen here. I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I think Starship will be successful. But nevertheless, it is a massive undertaking, massive. And Elon's only got so many years, usable years left, and he doesn't have limitless money to spend on this either. So this was a huge step forward, and there are lots of other huge steps that need to be taken in order to realize his dream and the dream of so many others. If you like the way I put things, if you like the way I report, it's all in the description. I would appreciate your support, especially in the aftermath of this trip and the fact that I am planning another trip, not necessarily to Boca Chica, but something really special. And I'll be talking about that in the days ahead. So, but in any event, just a like and a subscribe would certainly mean a lot to me as well. So until Starship takes the next giant step forward towards the progress of humanity eventually colonizing the solar system, until this becomes a reality, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.